Good evening, Viking family. Thank you for joining us for today's virtual town hall for our students and their families. These last few months have been challenging for our students, their families, as well as our employees and their families. However, I have been overwhelmed by the resilience of our students as they successfully finished the spring semester. Congratulations to you all. This evening, as all other times, we intend to be transparent in communicating with you. The impact of COVID-19 pandemic has taken a tremendous toll on the families and businesses across our country and across the world. The guidance provided by the governor, state health officials, and the UNC system office is ever changing based on the data of the spread of this disease. Therefore, we will share with you our plans based on the information we have available to date. And be assured, we plan to create the safest possible environment for our students, employees, and visitors as we return to work and welcome students back to campus in the fall. Let us be clear, providing a quality education for our students and the health and safety of our students, employees, and guests are our top priorities. With those things in mind, we have developed guidelines for our return to campus. These guidelines include enhanced cleaning, disinfecting, social distancing, an adjusted academic calendar, and adjustments to business operations. We recognize the challenges and uncertainty associated with potential changes in operations at ECSU and other public universities in the coming year because of COVID-19. These potential changes have left you with many questions. One of the leading questions we received from students was regarding refunds in the event we have to ask residential students to return home for safety reasons and convert to remote instruction again this semester. Per the current guidance of the UNC system, the university is not under any obligation to provide refunds as occurred this past spring. I will say, however, this is an ongoing conversation, so this may change later, and we will make the decision based on the UNC system guidance provided to all the campuses. If you contract COVID-19 virus, we ask that you alert your parents first. Then you and your parents have a conversation to decide whether or not it's best for you to come home or to stay on campus. If your parents think that it's best for you to stay here in order to keep your family at home safe, then we do have quarantine spaces that we have reserved for on campus for you in case you need to stay on campus. Please hear me. We are in this together, and we will get through this together. Our concern is for everyone's safety and well-being. As we present our plan, everyone must recognize the effectiveness of the plan will only be realized if everyone does their part. Students, you will be expected to follow the safety guidelines for the campus community. You will hear our plans to keep classrooms and residence halls safe and clean. However, you will have to chip in and try not to create unnecessary safety or sanitation issues in your environment. Parents, I too understand how you feel at this point. I will have a first-year college student in the fall as well. And as parents, I know you are concerned about the safety of your child. We stress the importance of being mindful of their responsibility of living in a community with others. We must stress to them to hold themselves accountable and to hold each other accountable in doing the right thing to keep each other safe. I ask parents to join us today in helping to reinforce the protocols and guidelines we have put in place to address health and safety concerns if there is a spread of COVID-19 on our campus. It is clear this is the new normal. This novel virus has forced all of us to adapt to new patterns of behavior, and that sometimes it feels awkward and uncomfortable. We need to work together to reinforce the importance of engaging in all of the behaviors we know prevent the spread of the virus by following protocols such as washing hands, staying at home when you're sick, social distancing, wearing face coverings and masks, and showing we care about each other by doing what is right to help fight the spread of COVID-19. Following CDC guidance and per the newly issued guidance by the governor of North Carolina and the UNC system, face coverings are now mandatory on the ECSU campus. Let me repeat that. By guidance of the CDC and the governor's executive order, as well as the UNC system, face coverings and masks are now mandatory on the ECSU campus. All individuals, including vendors, contractors, and guests, are required to wear face coverings at all times when on the ECSU campus, unless they are alone in their office or personal space. For students, you will be required to wear your face coverings everywhere except when you are in your residence hall room, and that is considered your personal space. The campus community also will be following social distancing guidelines and will have signage throughout the campus related to entering and exiting buildings. Also, navigating lines for the cafeteria and other areas, as well as sitting in classrooms. This signage is already on campus, and we're continuing to put it out there. It will also include the number of people able to ride an elevator at the same time. So please watch for the signage and please follow those directions. While we have practices and guidelines in place to ensure the health and safety of our campus community, we know there is still the potential for individuals to test positive for COVID-19. We have guidelines for employees and students. If they show symptoms, come in contact with someone who has tested positive, or they test positive. We also will create a dashboard on our coronavirus website that will report cases on the ECSU campus. The dashboard will show positive cases for employees, students, and subcontractors, and the total of cases and how many cases are active. This dashboard will be updated weekly so that all of you know at any given point in time the impact of COVID-19 on the ECSU campus. I have invited several of my colleagues to share additional information about the steps we have taken to prepare for a very safe reopening of campus in the fall. We have been working very diligently since this pandemic started, and we have done all that we can to make sure that we have a plan in place. However, keep in mind that this is a living document because information changes, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly. And we are making decisions based on the data and the information we have at the current moment. So I will introduce Vice-Chancellor for Operations and General Counsel, Alan Goodson, will talk more about the measures we have taken to address campus health and safety concerns. Provost Farrah Ward will discuss modifications to the academic calendar and instructional spaces. Vice-Chancellor for Student Affairs, Gary Brown, will talk about the move-in timeline and process, student health and safety, and student engagement on campus. And last but not least, Athletic Director George Bright will provide an update for our ECSU student athletes and athletics in general. Some of you have submitted very good questions in advance of today's town hall, and the panelists will answer them during their comments. If you have additional questions during this town hall, please submit them to vikingcompass@ecsu.edu. Again, Viking Compass, all one word, compass, COMPASS, @ecsu.edu. And we will try to answer your questions during this town hall if you were unable to submit prior to. I will now turn the mic over to our Vice Chancellor for Operations, Alan Goodson, to start us off with information about our plan. Mr. Goodson.
Thank you, Chancellor. So what's going to be critical to ensuring that we have an environment where it's one that's safe for you to return is making sure that we have a robust and clean and sanitary environment. And one way that we're going to implement this is the CDC put out guidance for institutions of higher education in terms of how to keep the environment clean when students and faculty and staff return. We have implemented that into our daily regimen, and that has become a part of our culture. The next question, and I'm sure many of you may ask, is, well, how are you going to do this with your current staff? Well, one thing that I can say is the Chancellor and the Cabinet has allocated resources so that we can more than double the number of housekeeping staff that we had on campus before COVID hit. That means that we can meet that obligation of a robust cleaning environment. The provost has put together a classroom schedule where there will be breaks at least 3 times a day where we can go into classrooms and clean in between classes. What you'll see is in the residence halls, there will be regular cleaning of the bathrooms within residence hall, which is something new for us, at least once a week. And I know VC Brown will talk to you more about that. You'll also see lots of hand sanitizer all around campus. You'll see lots of wipes all around campus. If you see an unsanitary condition within the building, if you go to the Viking Compass webpage, you'll see a list of building coordinators. Those individuals are housed within the buildings. Feel free to report any unsanitary concerns directly to that individual, and they will make arrangements to ensure that that gets addressed. Again, that can be found on the Viking Compass webpage, which is our COVID-19 informational page. I encourage you all to take a look at that. There's a lot of good information on that. In terms of facilities, how would they look and feel? Well, the Chancellor already mentioned that one thing that we are doing is we're going to have a campaign around healthy habits, and you'll see signage all around campus about that. It's going to be reminders to some degree. For example, before you enter a building, you'll see a sign that says, make sure you wear your mask, make sure you wash your hands, make sure you social distance. As the Chancellor mentioned, we can't do this alone. We really need your help in getting that done. And that signage will serve as reminders to you to help us achieve that. I'm sure if you've gone to Walmart or any other store, you've seen standing markers in places where customers are being served. Those markers are typically on the ground, and it says stand here for social distancing, and you'll see them 6 feet apart. We're adopting that same habit here. We have ordered standing markers, and we are installing them as we speak. They will be here. They will be up and running by the time that you get here. So that's going to be something consistent that you've seen out in industry that we are adopting here at this campus. I'm sure the provost will tell you more about this, but one question that we're often asked is how do we social distance within the classroom? Well, one way that we're going to do this again is around signage. Provost will tell you more about identifying particular desks. Those classrooms arrangements have been created to where we can practice social distance as much as practical within a particular classroom. You'll also see occupancy signs. If you go to an elevator, what you'll see is an occupancy sign of no more than 2. If you travel around campus in a general meeting space, you'll see occupancy signage that lists how many people should be in that space based on the square footage. We ask that you adhere to those regulations and self-police. Again, we can't do this alone. We really need you to help us do that. The way that we manage COVID-19 is by staying apart, by wearing masks, and we really need you to adhere to those occupancy signs that you'll see listed all around campus in those spaces that are typical gathering spaces. You'll also see breathable barriers. If you walk into an area that traditionally supports students or employees, you may see a barrier up. I'm sure you've seen those out in industry as well. We have installed those all around campus in some of the high traffic areas. And then you'll also notice around campus that there's going to be one-way traffic signs, right? So you may only be able to enter into a building through one entrance and exit, and then you may only be able to exit a building through another. Again, this is all put in place to promote social distancing, and we ask that you adhere to that as well. Chancellor, that's the update from operations.
Thank you, Mr. Goodson. And I just want to reiterate a couple of things that he said. So we've been very committed to making sure that we increase the number of housekeeping staff for the cleanliness and the sanitation piece of the importance of keeping our campus safe. And so I'm very pleased that we were able to do that fairly quickly and have those folks in place. But also the signage piece, it is going to take everyone paying attention, reading the signs, and holding each other accountable. I spoke with our student body president, Mr. Chambers, about creating an atmosphere or an environment of expectation that we're all doing the right thing to keep each other safe and to really focus on how we can have an enjoyable academic experience without having to result to having the same situation that we experienced in the spring. But it is going to take everyone to do that. I'll now turn it over to our provost to talk about the academic side and the academic areas that will be changing a bit to inform you even more.
Thank you so much, Chancellor. As many of you already have heard, we have decided to begin the fall semester 1 week early. Classes will now begin on August 11th instead of August 18th. We will not have a fall break or celebrate Labor Day or Veterans Day. All of this is in an effort to end the semester by Tuesday, November 24th, in order to have students leave for Thanksgiving holiday and not return until the spring semester. In the preparation for the fall semester, we did conduct an inventory of each of the classroom's capacity based on the social distancing restrictions of 1 meter to 6 feet. As a result, we have relocated several classrooms locations to make sure that we were accommodating those social distancing. And if we were unable to accommodate the required social distancing, we have relocated some of those courses to be delivered in an online format for the fall semester. Returning students will realize that some of their courses will be offered in a classroom building that is different from where their major department is located. Individuals will, again, make sure that they are adhering to the social distancing guidelines, and that's why some of the course locations were relocated. In terms of course delivery methods for the fall semester, there will be a variety of course delivery methods. Some courses, of course, will be offered online. There will be other courses that will be offered in a hybrid format. If it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, you may see that the courses meet face-to-face on Monday and Wednesdays, and then Fridays, the instructor will deliver the course material virtually. There will also be courses that are split in an A-B format, where half the class may meet in that for a Tuesday, Thursday, half the class may meet on Tuesday face-to-face, while the other half is receiving the information virtually on Tuesday, and then those two individuals would split. And so on Thursday, the other half will be face-to-face, and then the other half will be online. In order to make sure students are able to understand exactly what specific format their class is actually being delivered, we have adopted a standard syllabi that will be available and loaded into each student's Blackboard shell. All faculty will use the exact same template, and there will be a specific tab that indicates the actual course delivery method for that semester. As VC Goodson indicated, we will also have room signage to ensure that the social distancing practices are carried out for the fall semester. In individual classrooms where there are tables, there will be specific signage on each table indicating specifically where students are to sit. If there are movable desk chair combinations, there will be signage on the floor to let students know exactly where a desk should be located. And then on classrooms where there are soft stabilized chairs that are fixed in a location, there will be signage on each chair to indicate where students will be allowed to sit. Additionally, spacing has been put in between the courses so that each classroom will be cleaned at least 3 times a semester. At least 3 times a day. We have received several questions asking if students will have the option to continue with distance learning for all of their classes in the fall. As I just discussed, courses will be delivered in a variety of formats for the fall, but unfortunately, not all of the courses offered at ECSU will be delivered online. One of the benefits of being part of the UNC system, however, is that students attending ECSU will be allowed to take courses at other sister institutions in the UNC system through the UNC online portal. Although students traditionally are only eligible to take those courses when ECSU does not offer those courses in a given semester, we are modifying our policy, which will allow any student who is registered at ECSU to opt in to taking a course online through UNC Online. Students will need to first complete a transient study form in order to ensure that the courses that they are taking through UNC Online will indeed transfer back to ECSU once they've completed the course. Another question that we did receive is that what would students do if they do not, for some reason, enroll at ECSU during the 2020 academic year? Students who, for some reason, do not enroll will still be required to complete their financial aid package in order to be eligible for financial aid and scholarships for the 2021-2022 semester. If a student is an RA and does not return for the fall or spring semester, they would also have to reapply for the RA position, as the RA positions are established 1 year in advance. Chancellor, those are all of my comments in terms of academic affairs.
Thank you, Provost. And we also had a town hall meeting on Monday with our faculty and staff, and they heard some similar information as you just shared with our students and their families. So I'm very pleased with how our faculty have been able to adapt to the online structure, but more importantly, the patience that they've had, and also our students, and making sure that we all transition well as a university. In regards to the fall, as the provost mentioned, it's important that you let us know, and we will handle on a case-by-case basis any extenuating circumstances or accommodations that each student may need. And so it's all about communication and you letting us know what those needs are ahead of time so that we're able to make sure that the proper accommodations are in place for you to be successful this fall at ECSU. So now I'll turn it over to our Vice-Chancellor for Student Affairs, Gary Brown, to give us additional insight about the move-in process and other things that students really want to know about.
Thank you, Chancellor. The move-in process will be facilitated over a series of days, actually beginning with upperclassmen first and concluding with first-year students beginning August 3rd, and then concluding on August the 10th. The process calls for mandatory health pre-screenings that will be conducted by our Student Health Services Department. And we want you to know that you must complete the pre-screening ahead of your arrival to campus. Students should be expecting detailed instructions on how that pre-screening will work via your university email in the coming weeks. And if the pre-screening process is not completed adequately, students will not be allowed to move in until such time as they are medically cleared to do so. The move-in process itself is designed to be as safe as possible. It considers limits to the amount of individuals who can be in the residence halls at any given time. And it's also meant to ensure that the process is as efficient as it can be. As such, we've created the following guidelines for move-in. 1, the required use of masks by students and their guests for move-in. Move-in appointments being assigned to each resident in order to ensure that there's minimal congestion and social distancing can be adhered to. And then additionally, we ask you to be strategic in what you bring to ensure that you can move in within your allotted move-in timeframe. We have heard the questions posed prior to our town hall today, and we will be making a modification to the number of guests that come with you for move-in. You will now be able to bring 2 guests for move-in as opposed to the 1 guest we previously communicated. Please remember, though, that adhering to the guidelines related to your appointment time, use of PPE, and being strategic about what you actually bring for move-in will ensure a safe and productive move-in for you and all others who will be present on that day. All move-in appointments will be communicated by Housing and Residence Life staff by June 30th. If for some reason after June 30th you have not received your appointment date and time, please reach out to the Office of Housing and Residence Life at 252-335-3761. But please give them until June 30th to give you your appointment time. Within the residence halls, common areas and lounges, computer labs, and in suites are having specific pieces of furniture removed in order to limit gatherings and to adhere to social distancing guidelines. We have implemented a plan for increased cleaning within the residence halls, including restrooms of students. This restroom cleaning will be once weekly. In years past, and as is typical across the nation and other institutions, residence hall bathroom cleaning, unless in a traditional style residence hall, has been the responsibility of students alone, with periodic cleanings during holiday breaks. This year, in light of COVID-19, we will be initiating scheduled cleanings once per week. Students will be informed by their community director after move-in on what day each week they should expect their bathrooms to be cleaned. Although we will be initiating this plan, we will need each student to continue being responsible in maintaining the cleanliness of their restrooms in the time frame between the university's scheduled cleanings occur. Remember, it will take a collective effort amongst each of us to ensure the safety and wellness of our campus community. There will be, additionally, another shift that students can expect this year is that there will be no outside guests allowed to visit our residence halls. This includes friends and family members that did not have a room assignment on our campus. The only visitors allowed to visit within our residence halls will be residential students, meaning those students who are housed on our campus. And no student will be allowed to have more than 1 guest within their residence hall room at one time. We recognize that this is a change, but it is a restriction we're putting in place to ensure that our residence halls are safe places for our students to stay. And even further, many of our peer institutions are restricting visitation altogether. So our approach has been benchmarked with our peers. There have been questions posed that focus on a student's ability to be assigned a single occupancy room on the basis that they have underlying conditions. First, we recognize the motivation behind these requests, but in all honesty, we do not have capacity to grant every request that comes in. To that end, we do have a process in place for students who have documented medical concerns that require a level of accommodation that sometimes extends to residence hall room assignments. For those such requests, the Office of Student Accessibility and Testing Services should be contacted, at 252-335-3642. You will be required to provide documentation from a treating physician or healthcare provider. Please know that we follow federal guidelines in terms of making these decisions, and we will do so using a reasonable accommodation standard. This means we will make every effort to accommodate your need within the limits that we have from a fiscal and physical resource perspective. As such, your outreach may not guarantee your request will be granted, but it will be considered, and we will share with you what we can do in order to address your concern. Finally, you heard the statement that the Chancellor made at the outset of our town hall tonight related to refunds. In accordance with the guidance we have received from the UNC system, we have begun the process of making adjustments to your housing contracts. These adjustments encompass the statement on refunds related to there being no obligation to provide refunds, as we did in the spring, should we need to shift because of the COVID-19 issue. But these conversations are ongoing, and we will continue to keep you updated as we continue receiving direction from the system. The addendum also outlines the guidelines that are set forth related to visitation and the use of PPE. If for some reason, and we recognize that what we are sharing with you is a lot of information tonight, and as you're having conversations with your families and amongst yourselves, if for some reason you desire to counsel your housing, we ask that you contact us by July 17th to do so that we might then be able to accommodate the number of students who are still requesting housing and who are not currently able to assign because we are almost at full capacity. So please adhere to what it is that we've asked you related to those particular items. And I do want to share with you, there have also been questions related to quarantine space. And we have identified quarantine space on our campus for use in the event that students experience the onset of symptoms related to the virus and/or test positive for the coronavirus. Please note that while we have done this, the number of quarantine spaces is substantially smaller than the number of total spaces we have on campus. As such, if a student should have to be quarantined, communication will be made to the family of that student in hopes that as soon as is possible, they might travel to the campus to pick their student up so that that student can be quarantined at home until they are well. As has already been stated, we will be working with families where there may be challenges related to this request. We are committed to the care of our students and stand responsive to meet your needs. Because of our status as a sentinel agency as a part of the state of North Carolina, Student Health Services will be provided COVID-19 tests in order to facilitate testing for students if they exhibit symptoms. We are also working in conjunction with our local health department, who's an active partner in our response protocol. In this partnership, contact tracing will also occur to ensure that we identify the potential for the spread of the virus to anyone who may have been in contact with an individual who has tested positive for the virus. Each student, residential and non-residential, will be provided upon their arrival to campus a health kit that includes masks, a thermometer, and other similar first aid items that are meant to ensure that students facilitate self-assessments as to their health each day. Please be on the lookout for how the Vikings Engage app can be leveraged to document your daily readings and to ensure you have real-time updates related to changes and shifts in service delivery for student-facing units within the Division of Student Affairs. We are setting a requirement on our campus that masks will be worn as a means of ensuring the health and safety of our full campus, inclusive of students, faculty, and staff everywhere outside the residential space. There is a process in place to address concerns around those who choose not to follow the protocols we're setting forth. But we're hopeful that each member of our campus community will follow our protocols and we not have to use any response protocols for individuals who choose not to do so. Again, the requirement is to wear the mask. This includes within the classroom, within office buildings, within the common spaces in the residence halls, and many other places as well. The only time a mask is not to be worn, students, is when one is alone in their residence hall room. As far as testing, at this point, we are not testing, but instead implementing other preventative measures that align with the guidance from the CDC, the governor's office in the state of North Carolina, and the UNC system. There were questions posed related to dining, and I'm sorry, we have lots to share with you tonight, but there are questions related to dining, and the questions posed were related to food service and how that will be received. We've worked with our food service provider, and our cafeteria will be open at 50% of its full occupancy rate to ensure social distancing during meals. To accommodate the seating needs of our students, additional space has been identified on our campus where you will be able to eat, but utilizing social distancing guidelines. There will be no self-service options within the dining hall, as has been traditional within the space, but our food service provider has agreed to ensure that there will be no drop in quality nor in the food options that are available to you. Now, for the student programming, as is reasonable, programs will be provided through 3 different approaches this fall. Virtually, a pick up and go opportunity, meaning the development of some do-it-yourself activities that you can facilitate on your own within your residence hall space or with your roommates and such, or in face-to-face settings, adhering to social distancing guidelines, such as the use of PPE and in concurrent formats, meaning we'll be seeking, if we facilitate face-to-face programs, to offer those same programs across our campus at the same time, so as to minimize the number of individuals who will be in a given space at any given time. We recognize that all of what has been shared with you is a lot, but it speaks to our intentionality to be responsive to the current issue that exists around us and a desire to keep each member of our campus community safe. Finally, there were some questions related to campus recreation and to the question related to the availability of the fitness center. We will be following the guidance as specified by the governor's executive orders. When we are able to initiate the use of the fitness center again, we will be limiting the number of individuals in the fitness center at given times and increasing cleaning within those facilities as well. For student athletes, on the basis of your status as a part of university-sponsored athletic teams, and in line with the guidance from the governor's executive order, they'll be allowed to use those facilities, but within the parameters that ensure social distancing and the cleanliness of those facilities, and taking into consideration your health and safety. Thank you so much, and as always, Viking pride. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice-Chancellor Brown. Definitely a lot of information, but a lot of good information for our students to understand the expectation and the protocols on the student life side when returning back to campus. One thing I just want to reiterate to our students and parents and families is that the deadline, the July 17th deadline, to let us know whether or not you want to keep your housing, that is critical, because if you decide not to return back to back to campus as a residential student, that's fine. But we want to make sure we know that in time to be able to reassign your room to someone else if we have other students waiting to get room. So that July 17th deadline is very important. And so make sure you adhere to that. Also, for those of you who may be residents outside of North Carolina, just to let you know, the governor of North Carolina has extended phase 2 for 3 more weeks. So that would put us at July 15th in knowing whether or not we will be moving on to phase 3. So that July 17th deadline gives you ample time to determine and talk with your family as to whether or not you would like to return to campus as a residential student. And that's why we chose that date. So I'll turn it over to our athletic director, George Bright, to give us some insight on athletics and also information for our student athletes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Chancellor Dixon. Thank you, of course, to my fellow cabinet members. First and foremost, to our students and our student athletes, on behalf of the entire athletics program, I hope that you and your loved ones are safe and healthy. And please allow me to encourage you also to practice social distancing and adhere to all the CDC health and safety guidelines. And of course, please take this seriously. And I want to thank you for your patience, student athletes, during this time of unprecedented challenge, for our university. And of course, there was unmeasurable disappointment for so many of our student athletes when the athletic world just kind of suddenly halted in March. But I just want to remind you that this pandemic is so much greater than sports. As a student athletes, I want to make sure that and assure you that the comprehensive response that, of course, is led by our chancellor has been very masterful and inspirational as anything that I've experienced as an athletics administrator for a few decades now. So like me, I want you to take great comfort in knowing that we have terrific institutional leadership that's putting first you in our decision making. There have been some questions regarding our Vikings return to competitive action and some other things. So please know that the detailed discussions are ongoing throughout the NCAA, ongoing throughout the UNC system, and of course, throughout our CIAA conference regarding COVID-19 testing, of course, availability, frequency, and all of those elements that are there. But at Elizabeth City State University, we have been in constant communication with our athletic team position regarding the planned procedures. Our plan is for every student athlete to complete a daily pre-participation screen, which of course will be a temperature check. And of course, we'll have a questionnaire with information executed by our athletic trainers to help us aid in the risk and reduction in injury illness prevention. So an athlete that has a high temperature that's 100.4 or above will be isolated to a resting area and then retested, moments, minutes, maybe 30 minutes after that for confirmation as advised by our athletic trainers and our team physician. If that temperature remains above the mark, additional medical protocol will be executed under the direction of our medical team. And as we prepare for a return to action, please understand that this is a fluid situation. We are proactively planning according to the current science and data that we have. However, we can anticipate that something is going to change, but we will respond to the best of our ability. We do acknowledge that there is risk while competing in athletics, and that risk is in the physical activity and, of course, the contact. Coaches and trainers are preparing practice plans that are to include a higher acclimatization ramp-up period as sports programs were canceled and a major portion of their season was canceled during the spring, of course, at the start of the pandemic. So we will continue to take measures to mitigate risk. Our plan is to limit locker rooms and team meeting rooms to 50% capacity and initiate more virtual communication from our coaches to our athletes. Larger teams will alternate or rotate times in those spaces that they utilize. Our athletic trainers will utilize an outdoor tent as an additional site to help mitigate the risk of the indoor recycled air. We do expect our student athletes to also be responsible and to monitor their health by wearing face coverings, taking their temperature, and practicing social distancing. Now, those face coverings don't have to be worn exactly when you are at physical practice, but we do expect you to be responsible and monitor your health, wear that face covering at those other periods, and make sure you're taking your temperature. We will also take your temperature on a daily basis. Again, our primary concern is for the health and safety of our student athletes and staff. And as we get closer to the start of the season, we will announce those changes, restrictions, or schedule updates in the game protocol, of course, to all of our stakeholders, our students, parents, fans, all of our stakeholders. So student athletes, allow us to help you, and we ask that you please help us. If we face a situation where our trainers, our coaches, an athletic administrator sees a student athlete not wearing a mask or not social distancing, we ask you to be open to being asked to put on that mask. And if you see one of us, a coach, an athletics administrator, even those on your screen, not wearing a mask or not even social distancing, we're going to be open to you saying that back to us as well. So help us help you make this solution a part of what it is that we can do. Because we are all part of the solution and we can win by holding each other accountable. So I thank you for your attention tonight. I'm George Bright, your Director of Athletics. I can't wait to see you in the fall. Thank you, Chancellor.
Thank you, A.D. Bright. And just to reiterate, the CIAA Board of Directors met today and we will continue to meet weekly with guidance from the NCAA as well. And so when I say, as you can see in hearing our presentation tonight, we are diligently trying to make sure that we're doing the right thing for our faculty, staff, and students to keep everyone safe and to provide a safe environment for our entire campus community. And this is of utmost priority. And we wake up in the morning, go to sleep at night thinking about this. So hopefully you've been able to follow along with all the information that's been provided. It's been a lot of information, but I want to go to some of our questions that have been sent in to make sure that we are able to address anything that was not addressed in our remarks. So let me look at our questions and I'll go through one by one and call on someone to answer. So the first question is, how will commuters be involved in this while living at a house with high-risk individuals and won't be able to quarantine? So I'll turn that over to Vice Chancellor Brown to talk about commuters and any of the other cabinet members who want to pitch in to talk a little bit about that.
So what we expect is that every student will try their best to adhere to the guidelines that we have set forth. If you would take the initiative to follow the guidance related to wearing the mask, checking your temperature each day before you come to campus, and ensure the social distancing. The university is trying its best to do its part. But at the end of the day, there are some personal decisions that I think have to come into play. And if for some reason, you feel that the risk is too much, then we would ask that you would reach out to us so that we know what your concerns are, and we might be able to work with you at working through those, so that we might try to mitigate those issues. But we certainly do sympathize and empathize with you, as I believe many of us have individuals in our own families who are at high risk. And so, in all of what we've heard, it is the strategies that we use in terms of, the washing, the waiting, in terms of the space, and just adhering to wearing the mask that really make the difference in terms of this pandemic. So work with us, communicate with us, and we will certainly work as hard as we possibly can to try to help you through that.
Yeah, and I think I'll just add that another key component for commuters is taking your temperature before you come to campus, as everyone else will be doing. And if you see that you have a high temperature, you need to stay at home, and your home will be your quarantine base. And so we will not have space for you on campus. That space, the quarantine space, will only be for residential students. So your quarantine space will be your home off campus, wherever that may be. So just as Mr. Brown said, just holding you to the same protocols and the same expectation of keeping yourself and keeping our campus community safe. Okay, let's go to the next question. Oh. Okay, our next question is, we're hearing a lot about several college football teams across the country with 20, 30 players infected by COVID. What are the chances that the football season will be canceled? Well, I'll answer that, and AD, you can pick up, but it's basically what I just said. We're having conversations. We're talking with the CIAA as a board. I'm a member of that board. We're also talking with and hearing from the NCAA, as well as our ADs are meeting. And actually, I think AD, they're meeting right now.
That is correct.
The more information we get, we act on that information. As of now, as of today, yes, we will have a football season. Will it look differently? Possibly, yes, because there may be some social distancing and some other restrictions in place. But that's kind of where we are now. Do you want to add anything, AD?
Chancellor, that's exactly it. Our athletic directors in the CIAA are meeting weekly and probably talking every day about what the issues are on each of our campuses. Our goal here is to provide you as much information as we possibly can That decision has not been made as of today, but we will be, if that decision is made, we will communicate that effectively out to our stakeholders.
Exactly. So as of now, yes, we will have a season and we'll let you know otherwise if that changes. The next question, my child has asthma. I'm super concerned about sending my students since the virus is airborne. Do you have any thoughts to address my concerns? And this is an example of a case by case basis situation. And my advice would be to make sure that you contact the student affairs, the health center, to talk to them about what kind of accommodations your child may need that we can put in place. But I'll ask Gary, is there anything else, VC Brown, that you would like to add to that one?
No, just the Office of Student Accessibility and Testing Services will be able to accommodate you. That number that I gave earlier is 252-335-3642. Ms. Brown is well equipped to have a conversation with you and to talk through some things with you related to accommodations that we may be able to implement.
Thank you, VC Brown. The next question is for you also, VC Brown. Can housing put kids with allergies together in regards to roommates?
So, no, that's not possible for a couple reasons. One, we don't know every student that actually has allergies. That's not information that we typically gather from students. And then secondly, we have a housing assignment process on our campus where students actually choose what residence hall they want to live in. And so if we were to implement something like that, it would be taking away that choice in a way. And so that wouldn't be possible. But again, certainly if there are concerns related to allergies, those sort of things, they're documented disabilities, if you will, and make contact with Student Accessibility Services, and we can work with you to see what documentation you actually have if you qualify for an actual accommodation in that way.
Okay, thank you, VC Brown. Here's another one about housing. Who is going to closely monitor that students are practicing social distancing in residence halls? You want go ahead and you want to answer that one, or you want me to?
Well, I'll just say that we're a college campus, and we do expect a level of responsibility within the residence halls. But we also are realistic to know that you know that there's all sort of temptation that happens within the halls in terms of students wanting to gather in a space that they traditionally would have been able to gather in. And so we ask our students to be smart, to think through their actions just as we would with anything else, and to make the responsible decision. And if I would just personally say, let's not think about just kind of the right here and the right now. Let's think far down the road, right? And the risk that we run when we don't necessarily follow the protocols that are in place, because the impacts could be truly detrimental, not just individually, but to families and to the entire campus community. And so we really are going to need a lot of support, moms and dads, to reinforce what it is that we are putting forth as the protocols on our campus. And we know that we have your buy-in for that because you all have done great jobs at reinforcing things, the rules and the lessons that you have taught them long before they even came to ECSU. And so we ask you to just continue to do that. And it'll be a shared effort. But I will tell you, every residence hall has a community director, which is a degree trained staff member who's responsible for the management of those halls. We also have RAs on every hall, which are students who have been trained. They will not be going from door to door policing, though, to enforce, but we will be managing the process of how students and guests, those residential guests, come into the residence hall. We will know who has more than one person in their space. And when students violate those policies, there are also consequences. And so we don't like to enforce those consequences, but we do, and we will not hesitate if we have to for the safety and security of our campus community.
Thank you, VC Brown. And also with that question, I'll just add, as I talked about at the very beginning, the culture of expectation that our students are holding themselves and their friends accountable for doing the right thing. And so we have to really depend on their behaviors and making sure that they are in line with the protocols to keep everyone safe. Next question, how often will the communal bathrooms be cleaned? VC Goodson, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so in terms of, I just want to, not sure what you mean by communal, but I'll tell you, in terms of the buildings, the academic spaces and the administrative spaces, those are going to be cleaned several times a day. I think VC Brown in his update, what we're doing in the residence halls, which is not traditional, but something that we're doing as a result of COVID, is we will be cleaning each residence hall bathroom at least once a week, and we will be scheduling those times to come clean with each individual, with each suite or room member. I think, as he mentioned, that has not been the norm nationwide. Typically, cleaning is conducted on holidays and breaks. But what we're doing here at this institution, which is very different than that standard, is going into those bathrooms once a week to make sure we stay on top of that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, VC Goodson. Our next question is for Provost. Numbers of cases are rising in North Carolina. Is there a contingency plan if the ECSU campus does not reopen?
This summer, we are working with faculty to train them in the case that for some reason, again, we know the information changes daily and weekly, that we are unable to actually open in the fall semester. And so faculty are training on online delivery methods. In addition, we've also asked faculty to request specific materials that may be mailed to students in order for them to deliver some of their courses, particularly some of the science courses. We'll be ordering $70 microscopes that individual students can actually take home and in order to carry out of their laboratory science classes. And so we do not know what's going to happen. And so we are definitely preparing and have contingency plans if we weren't unable to deliver face-to-face courses for the fall. In addition, I will say that in the event that we do begin the fall semester face-to-face, and for some reason we do have to transition to remote learning, on the syllabus, each student will see specific contingency plans for each and every one of their courses. So we are definitely developing those contingency plans now.
Thank you, Provost. Our next question is, will COVID-19 testing be required for students prior to moving on campus? And I think you all heard the answer to that. The answer is no, but there may be some pre-screening type of questions that are asked. And we just ask that students each day and faculty and staff take your temperature before you leave your home or your room. And if you have a temperature, of course, don't come to campus, don't go to class. Alert someone if you feel like you're having symptoms so that you can be tested, and we'll make sure that that happens. Our next question, will there be any temperature checks throughout the campus? And that goes back to what I just said. It's going to be up to the student. We're going to leave that to you to monitor any symptoms you may be having, and taking your temperature is one that is a red flag for you to know, hey, maybe I need to go take a test, especially if you have other symptoms. But I believe Vice-Chancellor Brown did mention that you will be getting a kit that will have a thermometer in it and some mask and some other things in there, so that every student will be equipped to do so. And for those students who are commuter students, as I mentioned earlier, taking your temperature as well before you leave your home to travel to campus is going to be very critical. Are anything that I missed, VCs, that you want to add? Okay, our next question is, will COVID-19 testing be available for students at ECSU? Why doesn't the campus have a COVID test on site? Do you want to take that, VC Brown?
So the testing will only be available for students who exhibit symptoms. As we stated earlier, there's a very small number of tests that are provided to us because of our status on the campus. You also may have heard that a few weeks ago, we actually received some funding to provide some testing. And Dr. Ward, Provost Ward, could share a little bit more about that. And so there will be testing available should there be, a student have symptoms and require the test. But we will not be initiating any kind of proactive testing unless it's necessary. So that's all I have on that.
Thank you, VC Brown. Our next question, what type of contact tracing will be taking place?
So we'll actually be working with our local health department has been working in conjunction with us. If there is a positive test, they will be working with us on the contact tracing um, so that we might identify, work together to identify anyone who has been in contact with someone who has had a positive test. And then we'll move through our protocol in that way. If they're a residential student, certainly they will be quarantined in the spaces that we have identified. If they're a non-residential student, they'll be receiving some direction related to quarantining in their space off campus until such time as the number of days that they need to quarantine has passed and they be cleared to return back to the campus.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, are we going to have homecoming or will it be canceled like other HBCUs? VC Brown?
So we will not have homecoming in the way that we have in years past. Just following the guidance, recognizing where it is that we are, all of the planning that actually has to happen, and the level of investment that's required to ensure a success. It's just not possible, nor is it prudent for us to be moving in that direction. If there is a football game, as we are planning there to be, then we will probably do some level of activity that will be virtual to keep alums and parents and students engaged in that way. But you should also know, students, that the programming arm of the Division of Student Affairs, that does not shift, right? So we will still continue to do some level of programming. It may not be called homecoming. It won't be branded homecoming. It'll be branded as something else, but we will ensure that there are some things for you to engage in, albeit virtually, during that time.
Yeah, and I'll just add that we consulted the National Alumni Association as well as a survey that was sent out, and the recommendation from a committee and the NAA basically said exactly what Vice Chancellor Brown said. And as you know and have seen, many campuses are deciding to cancel homecoming because of the risk of any COVID-19 spread. Our next question, are you all going to enforce students being on campus on the weekends? The reality for that is that, it's this culture of expectation. We cannot make you stay on campus. We cannot hold you hostage on campus. But what we can do is ask you all to really think about your family back at home. So if you go home on the weekends, what could you possibly be taking home to expose your family members to? And then if you just, and so it's best probably that you stay on campus until we end the semester around Thanksgiving and then go home. But if you have to go home, of course, we can't tell you no, you can't. So I think it goes back to the responsibility of the student and the families to make the right decision in that regard, and building a culture of expectation that we're all thinking about these things before we put anything into action is going to be critical to our safety and health throughout this fall semester. Our next question is, can clubs and organizations provide virtual programming as well as bringing things like food trucks and other meal opportunities to campus? And I think Vice Chancellor Brown did talk about virtual programming as something that we're definitely going to do. And I know he mentioned food trucks at one point. But Vice Chancellor Brown, do you want to provide any additional insight on that question?
Sure. Programming from student organizations and clubs are always welcome. You all's vibrancy on our campus ensures that there is a level of activity and engagement and excitement and the Viking pride that exudes in everything that we do here. So our staff and student engagement will work with you on that. We can provide some consulting approaches to you, things that we've learned over the last 3 months in this virtual space to be successful. As it relates to the food trucks, we know that our food service provider is actually working on some options in this way as well. And so you can expect to see some of that on the campus this fall as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question. If a residential student tests positive for COVID-19 and is thereby quarantined, how will they be provided meal service from their meal plan?
Yeah, so the plan calls for communication between our staff and student health, residential life, as well as our staff in dining. And so we have worked out a process by which meals will be delivered to those students that are in quarantine spaces so that food service is not something that will go missing for those students.
And Gary, if I might add, some of the programs include no contact delivery for food, who deliver the food, are also wear the appropriate PPE.
Absolutely. You're on mute, Chancellor.
Okay, I'm back now. I had to move. Okay. How will students be able to take their temperature daily? Would you include something in the PPE kit so students will be able to do that? Yes, the thermometers will be included in the PPE kits that Mr. Brown, Vice Chancellor Brown mentioned earlier in his remarks. So every student will have a thermometer in order to take his or her temperature before they go to class. The next question, are the PPE kits only for students living in a residence hall? The answer is all students will get the PPE kit. And so, Mr. Brown, can you go into more detail about that?
So non-residential students will be able to pick up their PPE kits at the Ridley Student Center, the new Student Center, after they arrive to campus on that first day of class. Before you head to class, you need to go by there and pick up your kit so that you will be fully equipped and have your masks as well as the sanitizer and thermometer and those sort of things. So we're going to ask that you pick those up. We do recognize that you probably have some of your own masks, and that's good. That's appropriate. We'll probably have a period of days and times that we will be there stationed for you to come by and pick your kit up if you are not a residential student. If you're residential, your kit will be in your room when you arrive.
Wonderful. And the last question I see here is how many positive COVID-19 cases will be allowed on campus before ECSU shuts down? And I'll answer that. The purpose of us providing transparency around the number of cases weekly and providing that to our campus community is that we will also be reporting that to the UNC system office. And so we will seek guidance on how we should move forward if we see that there is an increase in the number of cases, an increase in the spread across the campus, and other things that could pop up. We're going to be talking with them, reporting that information on a daily basis, weekly basis, whatever's necessary, so that we're able to make the right decision for our campus community. So that's going to happen once we, get into the fall semester and we're reporting that data, and we'll make the right decision for our campus at that point. So I don't see any other questions. I definitely thank all of you for your participation in today's town hall. I hope that it was one that you thought was very informative. And I want to thank our team of presenters for providing such critical updates and information to our students and their families, as guidelines and protocols are ever changing. And you've heard us say that many times today during this town hall. It is important that we all stay on the same page. And this ever changing information we're getting is changing daily, is changing weekly. So please keep in mind that the reason we created the Viking Compass website was to keep you informed. So go to the Viking Compass webpage and get all the information that we've said here today. It's there on that webpage, and also any new information, we will make sure that we put that on the website as well. We will use this website to continue to update our campus community, and we will do this in a way that we are navigating the changes that may be occurring throughout the fall semester. We will also use social media and emails to provide updates to our Viking family. So please check your social media and make sure that you're keeping up with everything we're putting out there, because we want to make sure you are informed. We're also open and welcome any questions that you may have. So make sure that you are able to relay those to us, and we will make sure that we provide insight. But we hope that this town hall has answered a lot of your questions, and thank you for your patience. Thank you for working with us through this unprecedented time. This is something we cannot read a manual to know what to do. This is something that we're all facing uncertainty, and we have to make decisions based on the data and information we have at the present time. So I thank you for understanding that. And we will continue to be strong Vikings, because we are resilient. And we're excited about all of you returning to campus. But we also look forward to you taking responsibility in making sure that our campus is safe during this pandemic. And welcome to the new norm. This is something we're all having to get used to. And I just thank you all for your continued commitment and dedication to the success of the Elizabeth City State University. Viking pride, Viking pride, Viking pride. Have a wonderful rest of the evening.